Okay, everybody, we have reached the bottom of the hour, so let's get going with today's LTEN webinar, Game On, How Pickleball Shapes Dynamic Leaders. My name is Tim Sosby. I'm Editorial Director for LTEN. It's my pleasure to welcome you today and to serve as the host of our webinar. I'm going to start with some quick housekeeping items here, and then I'll turn things over to our speaker. We are planning a 60-minute session for you today. We might be able to give you a little bit of time back on the end of the day. We'll see about that. Your phones are on mute, but we'd love to hear from you throughout today's webinar. If you have any questions, any comments along the way, just type them into the questions module there in the control panel. Type them in as they occur to you while the thoughts are fresh in your mind. We'd love to hear from you, and we will get to your thoughts as quickly as possible throughout today's program. We're also going to be putting you to work using that control panel, that questions module or chat module on the control panel. So it's good idea to know where that is so you can participate when prompted shortly in today's program. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand in the LTEN Self-Directed Learning Library. I'm going to share an address with you for that library later in today's program. I'm also going to send you a follow-up email about an hour after today's webinar ends with a direct link to the recording. So either through that email or through the LTEN website, you'll be able to access today's recording, and certainly feel free to share it with your friends. And speaking of sharing, as you leave today, a follow-up survey will appear on a separate browser window. Please do take a moment when you leave today's webinar, look for that survey, and quickly share your thoughts with us. We always appreciate your feedback. And along those lines, there's my email address. I'll share this later in today's program as well. If I can help with anything around our webinars or your LTEN membership, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, with all of that said, I'm going to turn things over to our speaker. Let me tell you about our speaker first, then I'll turn things over to him. You're going to be hearing from Dr. Kaleem Islam. Kaleem is a professor, leadership coach, and the author of Pickleball Leadership, Lessons from the Court to the Boardroom. With extensive experience in corporate training and a passion for pickleball, Kaleem has pioneered research on the intersection of sports and leadership development. Following today's webinar, we're going to hold a drawing and give away 3 copies of Kaleem's book, Lessons from the Court to the Boardroom. So stay tuned for that. And for now, thank you all for attending. And I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Kaleem. We're going to change to his screen. And so you bear with us while we make the change here. Kaleem, thanks for joining us today.
Well, Tim, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this. One thing that I love to talk about is pickleball. Hold on, having a little issue here, getting my screen. And, you know, we just practiced this, Tim.
Well, you know how that goes.
One second. Okay, let's try this.
There we go. I see it now.
Okay, so here we go. All right. Well, Tim, again, thanks for the kind introduction and thanks for the advice. So just so everyone knows, before the webinar started, Tim and I were in sort of the practice area, and I asked Tim for some advice. He told me 3 things, and I promise you none of them had anything to do with keeping Will Smith's wife's name out of my mouth. He said, hey, Kaleem, don't try to be charming. Don't try to be interesting, and don't try to sound intelligent. Just be yourself. Thanks, I think, Tim. But on a more serious note, I really appreciate you sharing my bio with the audience. And to the audience, if you only remember one thing from my bio, I'd like you to remember that I believe that education is the great equalizer, and that the right learning solutions can transform individuals, organizations, and societies. And as a result, my entire career has really been focused on developing learning solutions that help individuals reach their potential and communicate their value. It started right after I left the military and started teaching school in New York City public schools, where I introduced technology-based solutions before everyone had a computer in their pocket. And in fact, those technology-based solutions was actually a Brother word processor that I brought into the classroom. But these solutions really gave a bunch of kids who had never previously experienced academic success, it gave them a fighting chance. Then for over 20 years, I worked on Wall Street, where I ran global learning and development businesses and introduced industry-wide academic and curriculum standards for back office Wall Street employees. Now, I currently work at the University of South Carolina, upstate, where I run the Office of Chancellor's Initiatives. And the work that we do there every day is to create and deliver learning solutions that help future leaders reach their potential and communicate their value. And because of this work for the past few years, my focus has really been on developing learning solutions that impact leadership development and working to help people try to think different about leadership development, to borrow an aphorism. So what I'd like you guys to do today is imagine something different. I'd like you to imagine a world where leadership development skills aren't learned in a boring classroom, or in a corporate training workshop that just puts you to sleep. Imagine if you could become a better leader by just hanging out with a group of friends playing a game of pickleball. Now, I know it might seem unconventional at first, but actually a study that I conducted with Drs. Danae Williamson and Dr. Nick Scalzo suggests that people who play pickleball actually perceive themselves as better leaders than those who don't play pickleball. And I'm here today to talk about the findings from that study and to present some ideas about how you might leverage pickleball activities that will make your leadership development programs more effective. So, in the time we have here together today, I'm going to share my personal journey and how I got introduced to the sport. I'm going to talk about, and this is going to lead into how the study came about and why the topic is so important. We'll share how we went about conducting the study, including the methodology and framework, etc. We're going to talk about the findings and the analysis from the findings. But probably most important today, we're going to share some practical applications, things that you can do tomorrow if you chose to with pickleball to help improve your leadership development program. So that's our agenda for the day. But before we jump into it, I'd like to get a sense of who we have on the call. So we put together a quick survey to give you guys a chance to tell me about yourselves. So if you don't mind, Tim, can you start the first poll? The first question we have is, what's your organizational level? Are you entry level? Are you middle management? Are you senior executive or other? So please, the poll should be up if you don't mind. Let's fill that out.
Great. Kaleem and everybody is making their choices very quickly. Folks, thank you for that. I'll give you just a few more seconds and then we'll close the poll.
Yeah. This
Great.
is really,
everybody.
Okay, we got it?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that, this question is really important because it's really going to tie into, and you guys will see how your scores sort of line up with the folks that we surveyed for this study that we did.
Excellent. Well, we have a good group here. Let me go ahead and close the poll. Everybody, thank you for sharing with us. Kaleem here. There we go. Here's who they are.
Okay, so what are the results here? Let me see.
Are you seeing the results, Kaleem?
I'm not seeing the results. It looked like I'm seeing. Why don't you just read it?
Yeah, let me read it for you. We've got 50% of the room is a mid-level manager, 19% senior executive, and 31% other.
Okay, so mostly mid-level and senior. Okay, perfect. Okay, the next question we have for you guys is, how often do you play pickleball? How often do you play pickleball? Have you not played at all? Do you play between 1 to 7 times per year, or do you play more than 8 times a year? So as you're filling that out, the reason this is important is this is what USA Pickleball uses to categorize pickleball players. You're either a non-player, a casual player, or a core player.
Well, Kaleem, again, the answers came in very quickly on this. Folks, just take a couple more seconds and I'll close the poll.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you right now, let me go ahead and close this. Thank you for sharing, folks. Kaleem, we have some pickleball players in the room.
Okay. So what are the results? Do you want to read those out, Tim?
Yeah, the highest percentage, 60% plays 8 or more times a year, 13% plays 1 to 7, a casual player, and 27% has not played at all.
Okay, all right. So we've got a good mix of players and non-players. Nice. Okay, question number 3. How did you learn about pickleball? Was it from a friend? Was it through internet research, social media, a television commercial, or something else?
I love this group. The answers are coming in super fast. Thank you all, folks, for keeping everything moving ahead. I'll just give you a couple of seconds here, and we'll share the results. And Kaleem, this one's going to be an easy one, and I think you're not going to be surprised. Let me go ahead and close the poll. Everybody, thanks again for sharing on the polls. Kaleem, we've got 94% learned from a friend, 6% social media. That's it.
Okay, friend and social media. That's how people are finding out about pickleball. Okay, nice. And lastly, what I'd like you guys to do is in the chat, in one word, would you type, what is your biggest leadership challenge? What is your biggest leadership challenge? Just one word in the chat. Tim, you want to share what's showing up in the chat? What words are you getting?
I'm waiting for the words to pop up in a second here. Folks, you can find the chat window, the questions window on your control panel, and just type in that one word. What is your biggest leadership challenge? Okay, well, I'm seeing a couple come in now. I see time. Time is one. Culture is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Budget.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership was the answer.
Yeah, leadership. My biggest challenge with leadership is leadership. That actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it.
Keeping it real, workload, which also is time.
Okay.
Great, some good responses. Everybody, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So we have a sense of who's there. So now that I know about how you guys came to learn about pickleball, which is mostly from friends, and where you are in the organization, which is mostly a senior, let me tell you about my personal pickleball journey, how I came about this sport. Now, first heard about pickleball from my wife. So you say a friend, I'm just like you guys. My wife is my friend. I learned about it from her. And she actually mentioned that my brother-in-law and sister-in-law played the game. Now, by coincidence, the next day I was actually at a cigar bar with a client, and I overheard two gentlemen discussing pickleball. So what did I do next? I did exactly what all the Gen Z folks do, right? I went to the source of all things true and accurate, Google. And I did about 45 seconds worth of research and figured I knew everything there was to know about the game. And why not, right? So after watching 2 videos in 45 seconds, you're an expert, right? So my next stop was to Amazon to buy some pickleball equipment, but I didn't want to wait for the overnight shipping, so I went to Walmart. And I bought about 100 paddles and 15 balls for like 30 cents. And I showed up the next day. I Googled pickleball courts, and I showed up the next day at a local pickleball court dressed just like this, right? So needless to say, no one was confused. No one confused me with being the LeBron James of pickleball, and my play that day confirmed it. Now, to the 27% of you who were like I was a couple of years ago and never heard of pickleball, here's the Clip Notes version of the sport. So pickleball is a racket or paddleball sport or paddle sport that combines elements of tennis, ping pong, and badminton. So think about it like this, guys. If tennis, ping pong, and badminton got together and had a baby, it would be pickleball. The sport is played on a court that looks a lot like a tennis court, but it's about a third the size of a tennis court. And if you've never seen the game played, this is how the pros play it.
Representative of our sport, a young lady that is well beyond her years, and we're about to get a great match underway here.
And by the way, she has never, in spite of all her success in pickleball, she's never won a gold medal at this tournament. And that's a little bit deceptive because she hasn't played here a bunch as a pro.
So that's the pros, but that's probably not where anyone on this line is, those who do play. Your games probably look more like this.
The ball's hit, no split step. The ball is hit, no split step. No split step.
So that's probably pickleball at your local pickleball court. Now, fun fact, the sport was invented in 1965 on Bainbridge Island in Washington by these three gentlemen, Barry McCullum, Joe Pritchard, and Bill Bell. Now, they created the game as a way to entertain their children who were out for the summer, out from school in the summer, and they were bored. Now, interesting fun fact about pickleball, it's not named after the pickles that we eat, right? The game is actually named after a family dog of one of the founders. So obviously they were playing the game, were creating the game, and the dog would grab the balls and run away. So they named the game after the dog Pickles. So next time you go to your local pickleball court, most of you, what was it, 77% who do play, give your other pickleball players that fun fact. It's also America's fastest growing sport, and in 2023 there were over 35.5 million Americans played. I recently saw a number that revised up to 36 million, or about 14% of all Americans played pickleball. And I was one of those 35 million people. Now, my interest in understanding the relationship between pickleball and leadership really started as a result of an embarrassing experience that I had on the court. And those that play understand this experience. I was playing against one of my neighbors who body bagged me 3 or 4 times during the game. And for those who don't know what body bag means, it's when someone hits you in the body with the ball. Now, it hurts real bad, and it's kind of embarrassing. So as we walked off the court after the game, I jokingly said to my neighbor, you know, I can't believe you body bagged me. I thought we were friends. Now my neighbor replied, we are friends, but if you don't want the ball hit at you like that, don't put it where you put it. Now that was a light bulb moment for me, and for some reason I didn't think about it in terms of putting the pickleball in the wrong place and popping it up and having someone slamming it back at me. I actually thought about it in terms of leadership. And I just pondered, right? How many times had bad things happen in my leadership career, not because of what someone else did, but because of what I did or what I didn't do? And how many times did mistakes happen because I put a metaphoric ball in a place where I could be metaphorically body bagged? So those experiences caused me to believe that there might be a relationship between pickleball and leadership. And I wanted to understand what that relationship was. So I spent a bunch of time researching the similarities between pickleball and leadership and interviewing leaders who played pickleball. And here's what one healthcare leader told me.
I am a healthcare leader. I've been working in oncology for over 20 years. Lots of different challenges in healthcare and leading healthcare, but healthcare is my passion. So okay. I've always, and I fell into pickleball for about a little over a year. Okay. But I became very passionate about that. I think one of the biggest challenges I have faced in the 10 years doing it is the different generations. I think depending on the line of work that you're in, technology keeps changing. So you have to be so flexible as a leader. So it's important to equally listen to everybody. You know, when I started learning pickleball, it was just the scoring. I had a very difficult time understanding the scoring, how to do the scoring. I would mess it up a lot. You know, patience, you learn patience from that. And I think being a leader, you must have patience. So you have patience with yourself. You show a lot of grace with yourself, with your fellow teammates. And then you challenge yourself. Leadership is always going to challenge you in some way. And so pickleball will do the same thing. Yes. So you tie all that together, learn how to balance all of that, and then you learn, you grow, and you get better.
Wow. Wow. This is a fantastic interview. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're so welcome.
Okay. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I took a bunch of interviews like that along with my research and ended up writing the book, Pickleball Leadership Lessons from the Court to the Boardroom. Now, the book explored similarities between pickleball and leadership. It gave some great tips on how leaders could leverage that experience to perform better in the boardroom. And it provided some anecdotal evidence to support my thesis, but it wasn't enough for me and what I wanted to do. I wanted to impact policy and practices around leadership development. And for that, we needed more. We needed more of an academic study. We needed a scientific study to do that. Now, I searched and I couldn't find any studies that directly linked or looked at the impact of pickleball in leadership. So I did what academics do, right? I looked for theories that might explain any relationship, if there was a relationship. And lo and behold, I came across something called serious leisure theory. Now, serious leisure theory, here's the definition by this gentleman, Stebbins. This quote is from 1992, but he came up with the theory back in 1982. And it's the pursuit of an amateur, hobby, or volunteer activity that the individual finds fulfilling, and where in a typical case, you get the opportunity to express a combination of those special skills, knowledge, and experiences in a work setting. So think golf and networking, right? So golf is considered a serious leisure activity. Now, while you're playing golf, you may learn to develop relationships and networking, and then you can take that back to the work environment. So serious leisure activities have 6 characteristics. Again, they can be amateur, hobby, or volunteer, but they all have these 6 characteristics. They require individuals to overcome challenges. So it's not like you can just engage in this activity and be good right away. There's some challenge you have to overcome. You can apply the skills learned doing that activity in the work setting. You must develop new skills to participate. You can benefit personally from the activity. The activity has its own set of norms and values, and participants tend to identify strongly with their chosen serious leisure activity. So think like when CrossFit was the phase, and folks that were into CrossFit really identified with it. So once I uncovered that, I realized that the characteristics of serious leisure align with pickleball. Because again, in pickleball, participants are required to push through early challenges. They get a chance to leverage some skills, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes in their leadership careers. They have to develop new skills. They get some type of self-expression or self-actualization as a result of it. The sport itself has its own unique set of norms and social values, and participants tend to identify with that particular activity. Now, the good news is I didn't have to rely on me just saying, hey, it seems to me that these things align with pickleball. I looked out and I found over 300 studies that refer to pickleball as a serious leisure activity. And to make things better, a number of those studies show that if you participate in serious leisure activities, you will have your leadership scores are better. You're a better leader. In fact, researcher Emily Buena interviewed a number of CEOs who participated in serious leisure. And here's what they had to say.
We had to explore it further. So I conducted private research interviews with over 20 CEOs of major corporations. The majority of them S&P 500 or Fortune 500 ones, all of them with many thousands of employees. As I progressed through the private interviews, the list of direct benefits was confirmed and grew longer. Self-confidence, humility, generosity, wisdom. The leader role is so intense, I feel it could swallow me completely. To balance it, I need another high-performing me. So I go and strive for my best at something completely different from work, instead of just plopping down on the sofa. It gives me another leg to stand on. That's when it all fell into place. For involved leaders, serious leisure is indeed another leg to stand on. And that connects to a concept psychologists call self-complexity.
All right, so Brenda found that serious leisure provides leaders with, in her words, another leg to stand on, gives you something additional, an unfair advantage, so to speak. So we know that individuals who engage in serious leisure activities are better leaders. The research says that. We know that pickleball is a serious leisure activity. The research says that, literature says that. So therefore, we would expect that individuals who played pickleball would be better leaders. So we took all that and we came up with our hypothesis that individuals who play pickleball are better leaders than those who don't. Makes sense. So we had a theory by which to ground the study, and we had a hypothesis about the results. So the next thing we needed to do was figure out, how do we measure this as it relates to leadership? So we took a look at literature and we looked at all the major leadership theories, or not all of them, a bunch of them. So we looked at the great man theory. We looked at transformational leadership, servant leadership, situational leaderships. And what we identified was that regardless of the theory, there were 8 common characteristics or behavior that was associated with leadership. And here they are here. So it was visionary leadership, communication skills, emotional intelligence, decision-making, adaptability, empowerment and delegation, integrity and ethical behavior, team building and collaboration. So we knew we needed to measure those behaviors. So we went about doing that. We developed a mixed methods research instrument, and there were 24 questions. 6 of them pertained to demographic information. 16 focused on those leadership characteristics that we just talked about, and the other 2 were open-ended questions that focused on specific leadership scenarios. The survey was created in SurveyMonkey, and we distributed it via LinkedIn, and the results were analyzed using a combination of SPSS, which is an IBM statistical analysis tool, and we also use an AI data analysis tool to help us with that. So let's get right to the results. We received 133 responses. The respondents were nearly evenly split between male and female, and this really offered a balanced gender perspective on the relationship between pickleball and leadership. And the participants represented various age groups, and this also ensured a broad representation. That said, the majority of the group, it tended to skew toward older adults, with the age group of 46 to 55 being the most represented. Now, the majority of the participants were employed, 78.2%. Then you had about 11.3% were retired. About 4% reported being engaged in work part-time. So only about 7% of the respondents were not in the workforce. They were also really highly educated. 46% of the respondents had advanced degrees. And they held senior roles in the organization. So if you look here, the participants in the study really reflected or mirror the folks on the call today, with most folks being in sort of middle and upper management. In our study, 80% of the respondents were middle and upper management. And most of the respondents didn't play pickleball. So unlike this survey where, you know, with this particular group, 27% I think didn't play. In our survey, 58% didn't play. So 25% participated more than 8 times a year. So those are the core players. And 17% played between 1 and 7 times a year. So those are called casual players. And like I said earlier, like the breakdown of participants into these categories is important because that's what USA Pickleball uses to categorize players. Now, in terms of overall leadership scores, so when you look at the top level scores, an analysis of the participant responses revealed that the more individuals played pickleball, the higher their self-reported scores, which is what we would expect, right? Non-players had the lowest scores with an average of 4.13, but even that number, that baseline suggests that even without pickleball, without engaging in pickleball, the participants in this study tended to exhibit some solid leadership behavior, possibly because of their education, other experiences, and their level in the organization. Casual players, those who play between 1 and 7 times per year, showed a slight improvement in leadership scores with an average of 4.2. Now, this is a small increment, but it may imply that even limited engagement in pickleball can contribute to one's leadership skills. Now, the most active players, those who participated more than 8 times a year, the core players, had the highest average score at 4.29. And this further suggests that the idea that more frequent engagement in activities like pickleball, which require communication, strategy, and adaptability, could be beneficial for leadership development. Now, I have to be sort of totally transparent. The scores did go up, but they were not statistically significant, right? So, you know, for those academics out there, the P was low. Now, when we looked at the individual quantitative questions, you know, those 16 questions that we asked, we got a more nuanced view of how frequency of play affects various leadership behaviors. And even though the results tended to follow a similar theme where, hey, the more you played, the higher the scores were, there were some exceptions. For example, when we looked at the question on inspiration and vision, we found that it was the casual players, right, those who play between 1 and 7 times a year, who rated themselves the highest. Okay, so based on our hypothesis, we would have expected that the core players would have rated themselves the highest, but for this particular question around inspiration and vision, it was the casual players. Core players rated themselves slightly lower at 4.17, and as expected, the non-players, those who didn't play at all, had the lowest scores. Now, in terms of explaining the reason behind major decisions, the core players rated themselves as the highest, which is what we would have expected. But what was unexpected is that there was no difference in the scores between casual players and non-players. The same paradigm was true as it relates to the use of appropriate vocabulary. Again, as expected, the core players rated themselves the highest, but there was essentially no difference in the scores between casual and non-players. Again, we have another example. The same is true on the question about seeking others' views. We asked them, hey, how often do you seek other people's views when making decisions? And as expected, core players rated themselves the highest, but again, no difference in the scores between casual players and non-players. Now, the question on delegation provided similar results. You know, those who played more than 8 times a year rated themselves the highest, and again, with no difference in the scores between non-players and casual players. Now, there was one area where the participants who didn't play at all scored higher than both the casual and the core players, and it was in their perceived ability to implement diversity and inclusion initiatives. So So all the non-players that are on the line here, you guys probably do a better job of implementing diversity initiatives than the pickleball players who are on the lines. Now, in terms of the quantitative questions, they really gave us deeper insight into why the respondents believe that playing pickleball improves their leadership scores. Respondents told us that playing pickleball improves team dynamics and collaboration because the sport forces teamwork and helps participants build collaborative skills that are applicable in a leadership context. Several participants made the case that playing pickleball improved their communication skills, and they highlighted the necessity of effective, clear and effective communication in both their pickleball and their leadership roles. In fact, here's what one leader told us about that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So let's go ahead and sort of segue into the leadership part of it. So talking about sort of what you do in your day job as a leader.
Sure. So I've been 30 plus years in robotic automation sales, and most of my responsibility today is mentoring the new people in the industry. And you know, it starts with basic elements of introductions to key clients, working objectives within those clients as they see them or as we see them, and just a lot of mentoring and product technical training, and then I work into the actual application engineering portion.
Okay. So what do you see as the relationship between pickleball and leadership?
Oh, absolutely. I see the correlation because, you know, in pickleball, I think a good way to start the game is you have a pre-game strategy session. You say, look, we're both going to approach the ball at the same time as it's coming back from the third shot. We're both going to get up to the kitchen line, that kind of thing together. If the ball goes left, we're both going to shift left. If it goes right, we're both going to shift right, you know, and minimize that gap. So in business, that typically I call that windshield counseling. We'll be sitting out in the car. The first thing is, what's the objective? Hey, we want to win, okay? Just like pickleball. You know, what are you going to do and what am I going to do? I'm going to ask the leading questions. You're going to ask some follow-ups or deeper probe questions. And, you know, this is how we're going to attack the account. And always mindful that we want to win. And that just, to me, that's just the key thing with pickleball is the pre-game discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so really about communication and discussion. The participants also believe that the sport enhances resilience and perseverance, which are qualities valued in leadership, especially when facing challenges. And our study respondents told us that playing pickleball contributes to better morale and enjoyment, which participants connected to a more positive leadership style. In fact, here's one quote that came up from one of our participants, one of the anecdotal responses they gave us. Now, this feedback and insight really paint a detailed picture on how participants feel that pickleball impacts their leadership abilities and how they apply the skills in the real world situation. So, based on all of what we learned in our research and what we heard from our participants, I just want to share 5 things that you can do to make your leadership development program both fun and effective. Okay. So one thing you can do is organize tournaments or regular play sessions that encourage participants to work together. It could be after work, it could be at lunchtime. But you have it so that participants can work together, they can strategize, they can communicate effectively, and they can mirror this team dynamics in the workplace. And what this does is this enhances teamwork, communication, and trust among participants, which will help foster a collaborative spirit that translates into improved team performance at work. You can also develop workshops where theoretical leadership concepts are taught, right? And then you immediately apply them in a pickleball game. And this reinforces learning through practical application. It helps participants to better retain and understand leadership concepts by experiencing them in real time. Number 3, you can use pickleball to teach resilience and adaptability. For example, facilitators can create scenarios where participants face unexpected changes to rules or team competitions that require them to adapt quickly. So for what you can do is you can play a pickleball game and then arbitrarily change rules so that the players have to, again, adapt. And this builds resilience and adaptability to changing circumstances. After your pickleball sessions, you can conduct debriefs where participants reflect on their gameplay and discuss what leadership behaviors emerge, what strategies work, what challenges they face, and how they can apply those learnings in their professional roles. And this promotes self-awareness and reflection, which are essential components of personal development and effective leadership. Now, for those who play, let's think about, there's a call and respond drill that we've developed at Pickleball Leadership. So what happens is you have one person who's the caller, another person who's the responder. So as the ball is hit to you, it's the caller's responsibility to let the partner know who's going to hit the ball every time. So you or me or guided or something that lets their teammate know that they're going to get the ball or who's going to get the ball. What's equally important is the response. So even though the caller may say, hey, mine or yours, the teammate must respond, yes, no, got it, or something. You must respond so that the person who gave the message knows that you heard it. How often does that happen in the workplace? The fifth thing you can do is pair participants with more experienced leaders or coaches in pickleball clinics where they can learn not only the sport, but also discuss leadership styles. So you can maybe pair up sort of senior folks in your organization with more of the junior folks in your organization to establish some type of mentoring relationship. And again, this enhances mentoring skills, it provides networking opportunities, and it really encourages continued learning and development in both sports and in leadership, right? So there you have it, guys. 5 things that you can do right away. You can do team building exercises, you can leadership workshops with pickleball scenarios, resilience and adaptability training, reflective leadership exercises, and mentoring sessions. Great things that you can do right away. Now, I want to end before we go to the Q&A with a conversation that I had with a pickleball coach and pickleball professional, and also a former executive at Apple, and what he told me about how pickleball can impact leadership.
In pickleball, for instance, as a coach, and I'm sure you'll find a way to relate this to business, but there are many people that have back injuries, knee injuries. I coached a gentleman, great guy. He had a back fusion almost his whole back, so he couldn't do certain things. What a fool would I be to try to tell him, no, this is what you need to do, if I first didn't watch him, ask questions, and learn. Now I can effectively help them. As a matter of fact, I went and put my back brace on. It doesn't allow me to bend. Wow. And I played a little pickleball to see what he experienced. So I would have more empathy for him.
I was going to say that's really high emotional intelligence, right? So you weren't just empathizing. You created a condition where you were really able to understand what that person was was going through. Yeah. And I mean, it's true. I mean, people have limits. Yeah. And some of them are physical limits. And you have to learn how to work around that. And sometimes those limits, they're not necessarily a hindrance. Sometimes they can figure out a way to make that even better. It's like people that go blind, their hearing's better. Yeah. Find the strengths. There's actually there was a study done by Gallup called strength-based leadership, where they did a survey. And what they found was that by a certain age, there were just certain things, certain skills you were just naturally good at. And so the concept was basically, okay, put people in a position where they're doing more of what they're naturally good at. Because if you're naturally good at something, you're going to want to do it more and more and more. As opposed to the other school of thought, which is spend all your time and energy building up the weak points.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Good stuff.
And what do I do with this guy? He knows everything.
I don't know anything.
Okay, so here's how you guys can connect with me. You can go to pickleballleadership.com or hit me up on Facebook. So those are ways that you can connect with me. We love to talk pickleball and leadership. I love talking about it all the time. And with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions that folks may have.
Well, Kaleem, thank you very much. Great presentation. We appreciate you sharing all that with us today. Folks, if you have any questions for Kaleem, you can type them into the questions module or the chat module there on your control panel. We've got a few more minutes. We can take some questions. Kaleem, let me I'll throw one out at you to start with. What's the athletic level for a beginner? How much do I have to know about pickleball to start?
You know, the great thing about pickleball is that anyone can start playing. You can be good at pickleball the first time you play. It's really easy. Now, getting better takes time, but virtually anyone can come out with no experience at all, and get out there and play and have fun. If you've played other racket sports like tennis or ping pong, those players tend to pick up the sport really easily. You don't have to be particularly athletic. I've seen a bunch of really overweight people who have done well. I see people who are just not naturally athletic, but after a few minutes or after a few times coming out, they get real good.
Someone says, "Be careful. There might be lots of injuries."
Yeah, what's really interesting is I started doing my research for the study. I'm looking for literature out there about pickleball. Most of the research about pickleball speaks to sort of the aging population that's playing and the injuries. There's a lot of research out there about how people are getting hurt playing pickleball. Again, because it doesn't require a lot of effort, so a lot of people who've never exercised before just go out there and start playing, and then bad things can happen. So be careful.
There you go. A good question here from Mark. Have you considered taking the study further to assess those who may play on a weekly basis?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that came out in the study, that we want to go ahead and look at the core players, those that play more than 8 times a year. And, I really don't agree with that. 8 times a year, I don't consider a core player. I mean, you have folks that play more than 8 times a week, right? So, but we are looking at doing the study just with core players, so we can get at, exactly what it is, with people who play a lot, and what makes that difference. So you might be seeing that out there pretty soon.
Someone made a note here too that you might want to check who you're playing against. So you obviously, some people don't want to play with beginners. You want to be maybe evenly matched with somebody.
Well, so the cool thing about pickleball, if you're playing rec, not sort of competitive, recreational pickleball, there tends to be like a rotation system where you sort of go to the court, you put your paddle up, and the next person that plays, you play, and you play with whoever's next. So the good thing about that, again, you can have a strong player, playing against someone who's not as strong. And the benefit of that is now the player that's not as strong can learn from the stronger player. Similar to business. Again, you want to pair up, someone who's more experienced, more advanced with more of a junior person, and that junior person can learn. And I would even argue that the more senior person is getting value out of it also, because they're becoming a better coach or a better teacher.
Excellent, thank you. A couple of good questions here coming in. Question from Mark: did the study compare those who play singles versus doubles?
No, we didn't. That was not a variable in the study. We just looked at people who played pickleball, so we didn't distinguish between singles and doubles.
Okay. Good question from Rick as well. Would these results be the same if we substituted pickleball for tennis or golf or what have you?
Yeah, based on the literature, you would expect that would be the case, because golf and tennis are considered serious leisure activities also. So you would expect that would be the case. I don't know if any studies have been done, but that's what you would expect.
Excellent. Folks, we are running out of questions here. If you have any additional questions, I'll make a last call for questions. I'm going to go ahead and take it back to my main screen here, if you can, while we're doing that. But if you have any additional questions, send them on in for Kaleem. We've got a few more minutes. Meantime, while folks are typing in any last questions, I wanted to invite you all to join us for our next webinar. We'll be back here this coming Tuesday, the 30th, talking about accelerating life sciences learning with virtual reality. And then on August 8th, we're back again for sales training, how to diagnose and remedy sales skills gaps. You can find out more information and register for those programs and other programs at l-10.org/webinars. Here's the address for the Self-Directed Learning Library, where today's recording will be housed within an hour of us leaving here today. And I'm going to send you an email about an hour after we leave today as well with a link to that recording as a reminder. And finally, there's my email address. If I can help with anything, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. Kaleem, I think we're out of questions. I'm going to go ahead and close things out for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thanks everyone for coming.
Oh, wait, I spoke too soon. No, I'm seeing a bunch of thank you messages come in now, and a great job and all that whatnot. So everybody, thank you for as well. Kaleem, one last thank you for you. Let me thank the audience for your time, attention, and participation in today's program. And let me wish everybody a good rest of your day, a good rest of the week, and a great weekend. I will talk to you all soon, everybody. Bye-bye.